Am I audible? Good morning, everyone, and thank you, NetNext, for organizing this event. I echo what Sunita was saying. Bye, Sunita. I echo what Sunita was saying about the fact that I'm really excited to come back to conferences in person, not do this over Teams and Zoom. I think we've lived that life for the last 2 years. As you can see, I'm not even wearing a mask. I'm just like, at this point, I'm fed up of staying away from physically interacting with people. I think we are all social animals. We feed off each other's energy, and that's how we get work done. That's how we innovate. And I feel while the topic is modernization, the topic is technology, I think the center of it all is people. And I think we should never forget that. And I'm so glad that Sunita kind of covered that beautifully in her keynote. I won't take much time, but one thing that I want to clarify, and I know we are talking about workforce modernization. The question that I was pondering when I first heard the topic was, what do we truly mean by workforce modernization? Think about it. Today, we have internet penetration of more than 60% in the country, right? We have more than 640, 650 million people who use the internet very, very regularly. Contrary to popular belief, rural India has started using the internet much more than what we had originally estimated, right? We are targeting almost 1.2 to 1.3 billion internet users in India within the next 3 years. And if you think about it, India is today the second largest internet using economy in the world, first being China, right? Nobody realizes this. Having said that, and I think Sunita also mentioned it briefly, our consumer internet, the boom that we are seeing in India in consumer internet, in health tech, ed tech, fintech, huge amount of money coming into the country, huge amount of people getting employed, huge amount of customers being created. However, having said that, that's the digital economy we are living in, but for some reason we are still modernizing the workforce. And that's the question that's pondering, and that I've been pondering and I've been bothered with for the last several years, is that why has HR not adopted technology faster? We use technology from the time we wake up till the time we sleep to do 50 things during the day, right? But when it comes to performance management, when it comes to rewards management, when it comes to sending an offer letter, why is everything still on Word documents and Excel sheets? I mean, please don't misunderstand, that's also technology. But, I mean, think about it. Are we really mobile in terms of people tech? And why not? So what I'm gonna essentially try and do over the next maybe 30 minutes with this August panel of speakers is try and peel the onion a little to say, what has stopped us from adopting tech for workforce modernization, or for using, enabling the workforce to do better work. Second, if we are to get on that path of transforming our workforce using technology, what are the 5, 6 things that we need to think about, right? As HR professionals, and I'm guessing you have HR and technology professionals in the room, what are those tenets that these experts have used in their current organization or previous organizations and believe that can be used when we build each of our technology roadmaps? What are the roadblocks that we typically face, and how do we stay ahead of that, right? And how do we finally maintain, because the other question that I keep getting is high tech versus high touch. HR is a high touch function, right? And we are talking of high tech, which takes away high touch. So how do you find that balance, right? And we have some speakers here who've been able to balance that beautifully, and we'll possibly take a page out of their wisdom and take back something at the end of the day. So without further ado, what I'll do is I'll possibly start off the session with the first question really that I had in my mind, and I wanted to kind of table it, and I'll possibly start from Abraham right at the end of the panel. Is, in your opinion, Abraham, what has been the I would say, the hesitation for technology adoption in people practices. That consumer internet has moved far ahead and HR adoption of tech is still lagging when it comes to employees. Your opinion as to why, why do you think this is happening?
Good morning, everyone. Finally unmuting myself. I'm so glad I'm doing it here. Well, it could be a little controversial, but I know what I'm talking about. Is my observation around it is, do we really have, do we as HR professionals have the courage to actually outplace ourselves? Business asks us many questions. You were talking about performance management system, We've actually overcomplicated a lot of stuff, and when these questions are posed to us saying that, do you really want to change it? We have 100 reasons. It could be the whole organization needs to be restructured. Where is the upskilling going to come from? Where is the cost? Will our labor laws permit all these changes? So we're happy to throw back another 10 questions to make ourselves relevant in the organization. So the question I ask myself and the other HR professionals are, do we really have the courage to outplace ourselves? And my belief is that if we have the courage to outplace ourselves, for sure, we are not going to go jobless. We will actually find another role which is very interesting for us to do that. This is possibly theoretical in a lot of organizations, but I can tell you, representing an organization which is fairly young, 2 to 3 years in reality, is that a lot of new organizations are taking the route of being high-tech and high-touch at the same time. So it could just be a matter of few more years that this becomes a reality. So the earlier we adopt, the better. So that's my thought about it.
I'll quickly jump to Tarun, because you're in a very interesting nexus of being the chief business officer as well as building a extremely successful startup in a fairly people-heavy space. Insurance is a people-heavy space. And you've built fabulous tech from a customer standpoint. But adoption of tech in HR, from a people process standpoint, how has that confluence happened? Is it lagging behind? Are you being able to adopt tech at the pace at which you're building tech for consumers? If there is a gap, why?
So actually, I'm on the other side of the table, because I believe my organization has done really, really well on the HR side in terms of systems, and I'll explain. See, what happened was, and I'll give you a little bit of background story, because I can't tell anything without a story, because I'm obviously not an HR guy. But when we started the organization, our belief, like any other founder, was we'll set up this 20-member kind of company out of a really shusha office, right? We'll sit there, we'll code, or we'll do something, and we'll set up this site which will have comparison, and customers will come, they'll compare, they'll buy, and we'll make lots and lots of money, right? We'll be driving our Ferraris in 3 years. So we built up the website, we put up a comparison engine. People came and they went. Koi nahi kharida. So then we put up a workforce calling those customers and checking, why did you not buy? And in that process we realized, why they did not buy, and kind of countering that, put really good salespeople, and they started selling, and we started making a little bit of money. And we realized that insurance, at least at that time, back in 2008, was not ready for something which is purely internet. Or maybe we were not capable, wo pata nahi. But either ways, we needed our sales guys, right? And at the core of it today, and a lot of people taunt us, right? Especially a competition, they come and say, you're a call center company. So theek hai, matlab, we didn't come here to get tagged as anything. Now, that sales guy, his core job is to actually understand and explain products. His job is not to do all the other peripheral stuff, right? And it's very important for us that he is on the phone as long as he can be and not doing anything else. So our systems around all of that, right? So basically speaking, it's like a mother whose child is studying for the entrance exams. Uska khana table bhi aana chahiye. He should not have to kind of worry about anything else. Kapde press hone chahiye, all that jazz. So we look at our employees exactly like that, so they're able to focus on their core. In terms of technology, see, your employees should not be visiting a floor to meet HR. That's exactly what I think we're about. How do you build those systems? Those systems are very, very easy to build. We all talk about ticketing systems, we all talk about interactions, we all talk about time with, with, let's say, senior management. All that can be done where the people believe, as long as you're willing to do it. See, workforce modernization means if I, as a founder, want to send a message to all my employees, be able to interact with them, that system is so easy. And you don't have to adopt, you don't have to build systems for it. Today, my organization, my CEO, and most of the sales org are connected through a very simple WhatsApp group. I know it's very, it's not very cool, but that's exactly it. Why do you want to build technology for it? Technology is aiding it already. There is a platform called WhatsApp. It's doing really, really well. Why don't you use that? I think it's a mindset change for all of us trying to build something. And I can tell you all the enterprise systems, I hate them. मतलब पहले मेरे को reimbursement करने के लिए bills जाता था, दे देता था. Now you have to scan them, put them there, tell them why, hide the alcohol वाला part. That's not it, right? You've got to do what you've got to do. If you know, well, I don't want to kind of belabor that point anyways, right? But all I'm saying is that technology is all around you. You don't have to build it. You don't have to have a team which is doing it. Everything is around you. It's already built. It's very easy. It's open source. I think it's a mindset change for all of us to just be able to enable those guys. I think I'll kind of stop there.
No, perfect. And maybe one more perspective from Pradeep. You've been on a very interesting journey, especially with pharma tech, health tech. You're also on the board of companies. What's in your opinion? What do you think is the roadblock to adoption? And why do you think that the confluence of tech when it comes to customer versus employee is not happening at the same pace?
Yeah, so good morning, everybody, first and foremost. I think there are 2 or 3 things that kind of stop us when you think about this. The first one is, as HR, I don't think we do a good job of connecting customer experience to employee experience. I believe that they are directly proportional to one another. If your employees are not happy, most likely your customers are not happy. And that narrative is not being expressed enough by our fraternity. So that's the first one. The second, any investment needs a business case. Any investment where you're putting in dollars or rupees or whatever it is, needs a business case. And I don't think we as HR professionals, at least for a long period of time, maybe we're getting better at it, but have been astute, has been experts in being commercially savvy in the solutions that we provide. HR has been, for a long time, a lot of romanticism, a lot of touch, feel, motherly kind of stuff, right? So I think unless HR and HR professionals become techno and commercial savvy, you can't get a business case through to your board, right? That's the second one. And I think the third one is about, and you mentioned that, high tech versus high touch, right? I think HR for a long period of time, we as HR professionals for a long period of time have been high touch fraternity, high touch community, high touch function. In my understanding, HR doesn't have any power. But HR professionals seem to believe that they have the power to make an offer, to throw people out, rebuke people, reprimand people. We don't have powers. The only power that we have is the power to influence our managers, right? And that comes not from high touch, that comes from work, that comes from value, that comes from talking about business. So I think those are the 3, 4 impediments that have sort of ailed us over a period of time. And if you can get through some of that, then modernization within HR is possible. And as you said, as Sunita said, our employees are experiencing a totally different technology stack in their normal life, in their daily life. And therefore, when they come to work and they see archaic systems, they obviously feel disgruntled. And the only people who can do that, change that, improve that, transform that, is folks in the room.
No, brilliant. And just taking that point, and it's a nice segue actually into my question for Bapuji, because you and I have both worked, you work in Flipkart, I used to work in Flipkart, so I know the scale that you guys operate in, right? And I think the largest segment of the workforce are people who are manning the supply chain functions, the consumer experience functions, etc. Now, I've always pondered that, you know, when it's about digital HR, when it's about HR technology, when it's about adopting technology for people functions, it's kind of easier to do that for employees who sit in corporate offices, for engineers, for product managers, for marketing managers, right? The moment you hit the shop floor, the moment you hit a warehouse that's managing, you know, a few million units and handling a few million units of products every day, and you have people working there who may not be so well educated, and is primarily a high-touch function for HR on ground. How do you bridge that gap? So Bapuji, my question to you really is, you've seen extremes of high-touch and high-tech because of working with a company like Flipkart. In your experience, how do you bridge that gap, especially with the large workforce that Flipkart currently has, even on ground from a supply chain standpoint?
Hey, hi, thank you. So nice to see a lot of my colleagues, some of my mentors, and happy to see you all after a very long time. So this is a very interesting topic. How do we cater to both high touch as well as high tech? So when we look back maybe 10 to 15 years behind, there were industries which are typically high touch, and there were industries which are maybe high tech. But with recent new startups coming in, both of them are together. There are new startup companies in the new world where they have two extremes together, working closely day in and day out. So how do we manage HR for this kind of two extremes? Is a learning that I went through for last 8 to 9 years. One thing we noticed in high touch, that is mostly blue collar workspace, they are also equally tech savvy, which we were not able to maybe gauge or estimate. All of them have smartphones and they're very comfortable in using the app as much as maybe high tech workforce. That's one. Second, most of the high tech workforce used to always feel that there is a gap in the kind of comfort you give to customers in terms of technology compared to what you give to employees. Often there used to be some kind of difficult conversations in boardrooms wherein we need to push for investing in technology in HR. So it was a very difficult conversation, but slowly it is on. Now coming back to how do we manage these two extremes of high touch and high tech, one thing we could notice is the needs of both the cohorts are almost similar and they are evolving. One, in the high tech area, they often say HR is good, it is helping us, it is enabling us, but leave us alone, we will manage ourselves. Good that you are enabling us, but we will figure out what to do with our careers, how to manage our learning. Just help us, treat us as a person, not just an employee code, what Sunita was mentioning. That is on the high tech part. On the high touch part, in high touch is also slowly evolving. What they want, we manage about close to 5 to 6 lakh people on ground across supply chain, different functions. All they need is just tell me what I'm supposed to do today. And career planning, learning and development, maybe life cycle management, all that they want us to do it through technology. Because the average time span, tenure, is coming down from when I joined about 1 year to about 46 days. So in most of these startups, the blue collar workforce is tenured between average about 46 to 47 days, and it is coming down. Then beyond that, there is a new trend emerging, which is no touch. In between these two, a gig workforce. They tell me, just let me know what I'm supposed to do today, and rest I'll manage myself. So there is a new cohort which we are slowly started addressing, and all they want is, they want to work in different maybe functions at different points of time in a day, and don't want to be emotionally connected to either the role or to the organization. But probably with our limited experiment in last 2 years, they are the ones who are giving us the best productivity. Very interestingly, than the tenured, than the ones who are there with us for maybe longer period of time. So it's interesting, high touch, low touch, and beyond that, the gig workforce, which strongly believes and expects us to be no touch.
No, thanks, Bapuji. I think what's coming out very clearly is the fact that today there are two aspects which came out very strongly in the conversation so far. So one is we need to connect CX to EX, which is your consumer experience to employee experience. And it's very important when you're thinking of digital transformation. Without doing that, we are actually missing the quantum of work that is required, the quantum of transformation required. And the second thing is, I think, work arrangements. You have full-time employees, you have gig workers, you have blue collar, gray collar, white collar. For different kinds of employment arrangements, your evolutionary stage of digital adoption could be different. What, as HR professionals, as business professionals, you first need to understand and accept that, and then start the journey. So like Bapuji pointed out very correctly, that today, for any supply chain professional, the number of days spent in an organization is reducing. But on the other hand, gig workers' productivity is improving, which means it's actually a better way of running the business. But think about it. To manage gig workers, you actually need a fairly sophisticated system. You need tech that can understand what a gig worker is delivering, handle their payments, handle their time, handle their contracting and any other contractual arrangements. So that means the moment you start deciding that, you know what, 30% of my workforce is going to be gig, in any field, why blue collar, even white collar, I need to start adopting technology to meet that demand. So net-net, I think what the panelists are telling us, one is the fact that sit back and look at the business requirements, and I'm going back to something that Pradeep said, which is very vital. See, we need to be a little more business savvy as people partners. Meaning, look at the business, identify the people requirements for that business to make the business profitable, to make the business grow at the pace at which it's supposed to grow, and create best stakeholder value. And then work backwards to say, now what tech do I need to make it relevant, to make this happen? Right. Now, having said that, let me again, let's say, go back to Tarun, right? And because, like you said, that when you were building the organization, you learned a few things the hard way, but you took the right decisions to give the right experience to your employees. But what I wanted to understand was, when you were developing some of these things, was there any resistance to rapid change? Because you're bringing in people from a traditional industry and you're plugging them into something which is extremely digitally savvy. And then you're trying to help them with a lot of, I would say, technology or digital support. Was there any resistance to that change? Because we are resistant animals at the end of the day. And if so, how did you handle it?
So of course there was a lot of resistance to change, because you've been doing something a certain way for a long time, and you kind of do that, right? It's like, but some of it is easy. You've got to make sure that you're selling it as easy, right? It's like I can't tell you the value of a dishwasher, which I learned in the first lockdown, right? Like I can't believe it. I'm in love with it, right, today. But that's what happens to most people who adopt technology. So I think it's about, we do a very sorry job of selling our systems to our own employees. I think, when we, 𝗪cie𝗶𝗶𝗯 spends a fair amount of money on Akshay Kumar trying to tell you how awesome our platform is. But we've built the same platform for our employees. But is there even 1% of your spend going into advertising it to your employees? What do? We set up a training. ये नया system आ गया है, इसको ऐसे use करते हैं, यहाँ click and do this, right? It's almost a mandate. Why do we mandate it? Why do we not try and get more inclusion into that system? Why don't we take their feedback? If it's built for them And tech guys have this whole, what do you call that thing that they draw out, you have to have all your requirements in one place.
BRDP.
Yeah, the BRD, yeah, you want all of that done. Why isn't the user part of that BRD document, right? And I think that has to happen. I think the problem is not at their end, I think the problem is at our end. Of course they're going to resist change. He's been doing something for so long, for so well, they believe they're rock stars, which is why you've hired them. And now you go and tell them, तू छोड़ दे, मैं बताऊँ तू कैसे काम करेगा. I mean, I think I think we're kind of making a big mistake. Otherwise, what's the point of them? And I think we need to sell it much better. In terms of resistance to change, I can tell you that if you can make that person believe that a particular system, a particular process is going to add value to what they do, they'll adopt it. Right? I don't think it's that difficult, right? We all do it, right? When Instagram came in, it was better than Facebook because you're not getting so many ads. We shifted, right? Normal dating has really left. There's all this bumble jumble jazz is happening, right? It's people adopt it because it's easy, it's more convenient. That will happen to our own workforce tech as well. So my whole point here is we need to sell it to them. We need to mandate it.
No, it makes sense. And Pradeep, shifting quickly to you. So let's say at a strategic level, at a board level, at a CXO level, what is is there a presence of this concept of workforce digitization at the board level? Or is it something still fairly transactional which we are doing to make ourselves more efficient or save cost? Because unless it comes from the board, unless it comes from the CXO level, I'm not sure whether, like Tarun mentioned, right? It was from a founder standpoint, there was a huge push. But at a board level for large corporates, multi-country, multi-business corporates, is it there in the boardroom?
Yeah, I think so. I think the board and boards across the world understand the need to invest and become more digital, because the client ecosystem is becoming more and more digital. So how do you support a customer or a client ecosystem which is digital without yourself being digital? So I think the board understands it. But as I said earlier, it's not about, as Tarun was saying, it's not about rolling out an ERP. It's about figuring out where is the bang for the bucks. It's not about just creating a system just because the system needs to be created, but figuring out where we need to invest so that you drive maximum value. I work in a private equity environment where the time to value is of essence, right? And therefore, it's not about creating a big ERP or rolling out a big ERP, touching all aspects of HR and making every life cycle of an employee digital. It's about figuring out where we need it and do those first, gain efficiency, gain productivity, gain value, gain experience, and then go to the next. So I think that's what we are seeing primarily. The other thing that is happening, again, depending on whether you are working in an Indian setup or a global setup, while everybody talks about the rise in demand, in the Western world, the rise in demand is because there are no people, right? If you're working in Europe or the Nordics, there is no people, and therefore the need for digitalization is that much higher, and so it's not digitalization for the sake of digitalization. It's not digitalization because it sounds cool. It's because there is definitive need, and so the board absolutely understands, appreciates, and supports if you can present a case for change.
I'll switch to Abraham for the simple reason that one, he's a mentor. He's on the board of companies. Abraham, so tell me the adoption, something that Pradeep said. Is the adoption of tech from a people standpoint, HR tech, is it reactive or something he used? And I've heard this, that's why I'm asking this question. Or is it because it's cool and everyone's doing it? What is the reason for the CXO group because let's face it, whether it's a monolithic platform like let's say a SuccessFactors or a Workday, or a bunch of very small best of breed hire to retire platform which you stitch together, it's still expensive. I mean, you're still spending money, right? But it's not solving a financial problem. It's not solving a supply chain or procurement problem. So the adoption of tech in HR, is it still reactive? Or is it because everybody else is doing it? Or have you started seeing a strategic vision for doing that so that it actually generates better stakeholder value or shareholder value over a period of time?
Thanks. Very interesting question. I'm happy I get this opportunity to express myself on this. First of all, I think it's important that I set a context here in terms of what is a business we do as part of Innoventure. We actually handle a very complex issue of beating counterfeit. For those who know the stats around it, it's a huge issue. So we have a digital signature which is put into the product, an invisible signature which is put into the product, where you can identify counterfeit on the same experience. You can engage with the customer. So the company is able to directly engage with the customer digitally. You're able to pull out a hell of a lot of data which is provided to the company, which helps them to take right decisions. You're in the process of actually helping them to clear out carbon footprint targets that they have, or meet the carbon footprint targets that they have. So a very complex problem is getting sorted out through technology in a very simple fashion. All what I need to do is just use my mobile phone and scan the product. And I get all what I talked about in complexities in all environments across the region. Why am I saying this is because at a board level, when we started off, and I've been fortunate to be part of the journey right from day zero, we said, well, this cannot be achieved if you have people doing certain things and machine doing something else. If you have your machine to do what people want to do, then you'll always limit yourselves. So we said, we have to have AI or machine, or whatever you want to call it, and human at the core of it. And then build your processes around it. Don't have your processes built first and then get your machine to work around it. Have AI and machine. Understand that these are elements which needs to work hand in hand, and then develop your processes around it. We've implemented. I must say that we've actually implemented it. When we were just 15 employees, we wanted to do an engagement survey. So obviously the first names that come up, I don't want to brand a few, but first names come up with the big names where you can do your 100 questions, people sit and fill it up. We've all done that, right, multiple times. We said we adopted an AI engagement tool where we actually define the employee, and the questions which goes to the lower rank or the leadership team are completely different. The question which goes to customer experience is different, which goes from finance. So a completely AI tool which could actually be completed in 15 minutes or 20 minutes is the time to take an exercise. And believe me, I got the report in 2 hours' time. And the leadership team got together to do an exercise to actually evaluate this report the same day itself. We implement it because we know it's relevant for the time. So we use a lot of data. At this stage, if you ask me, is my organization completely there? Definitely no, because we don't have enough of data points. But we are collating a lot of data points and getting it together and making sure that these things talk together. As Pradeep was mentioning, I have to see, my vision or the organization's vision is to see how do you correlate employee experience to customer experience to financial numbers. So what a human being cannot imagine is to be brought together in collaboration with man and machine to actually go beyond what we call as a puzzle, and we want to go and handle the mystery where you actually do not have a solution. So it's not a puzzle game, it's a mystery game. You do not know. Or you try and do certain things from an organizational level to handle what you actually do not know today and even tomorrow.
No, thanks for that. And I think that's very critical. I think it is important for us to take a outside-in or a top-down view. But now we'll quickly switch over to a bottom-up view and also ask Bapuji this question around the last 2 years have been fairly disruptive for, let's say, the blue-collar workforce. Why blue collar, even white collar? And in that kind of an environment, in that pandemic-ridden environment, how did tech help bridge that gap or create the right experiences, right? Let's say from your own vantage point in Flipkart, how did you see that become the flag bearer of employee experience, tech become the flag bearer of employee experience? Because beyond a certain point, you were not able to, at least during the heavy period of the pandemic, you guys were not able to meet people personally beyond the point. So how are you managing that during that time?
Yeah, so these 2 years during the pandemic, luckily being part of e-commerce industry, it was quite active. In fact, it was doing far better than pre-COVID days. So it was a great opportunity to serve customers, especially some of my industry peers who are supplying essential commodities. So these 2 years was a period when the entire e-commerce industry was overworking. They met their numbers, they doubled their revenues. So it was a great business show. So in this business show, there was a major issue of how do we connect people? How do we connect both white collar, gray collar, blue collar, different kinds of people working on different geographies. Today, the e-commerce reach is as good as the reach of Indian Post. That means they touch every nook and corner of the country. So that being the case, people are spread across. So tech was of great help, and the speed of adoption increased, one. Second, investments in maybe enabling even the last mile employee to become tech savvy, adopt and get onto platform was much faster, and it was done by force overnight due to the circumstances, one. Second, at the end of the day, when we look at tech adoption and people centricity, we always go back to the basics, like our investors are people, our customers are people, and our employees are people. If we enable these three cohorts of people, probably that will do a great job in managing the business as well. And to do that, if we use all these modern tools to make sure it is on time, quick, and user-friendly, like WhatsApp, so that really helped us to bind the employees together and also be on track on the business.
Made a lot of sense to help people learn and adopt new people technology so that they can come together better. Having said that, and just a quick time check, Deeksha, how are we doing on time? Oops, so not visible for me. Okay, cool. So we're almost at the end, but I just wanted to have one question which I wanted to go around, but what I'm going to do is, I'll ask for 1 point from each of you and then come back, right? So the question really that I'm posing for all of you is that, let's say, what are the top key tenets for adoption or for building a successful roadmap from a man-machine collaboration? I'm using this terminology, but I'm for bringing people and tech, for bringing high tech and high touch together. What are the top 5, top 6 tenets that the audience and even me, we can take back from your cumulative wisdom around what would be needed for success? What are the elements, the secret sauce for success? Let me go one by one, let's say Tarun, then Pradeep, and we'll keep coming back if there are new points.
I think, in terms of tenets, I should have thought this through, but I think the most important thing for me is, I think, adoption of inclusion. I think inclusion in system development. If you want man and machine to collaborate, get the man to agree, right? The machine will agree and so on. So include them in the process of the whole automation, get their buy-in, and that's very important. I think second is, we need to use machine very wisely. What I mean by that is, if there is repetitive work for an employee, which a machine can take over, you've got to explain that to that person that, if you took this away, if we actually automated it, it will make you more productive for something else. So I think that has to be done. And I think the third part, and I think they're all actually boiling down the same thing, is make sure that it adds value to that person. And even when you're buying the software, when you're buying all these systems, I think it's very important to understand, does it add value, or are we doing it for the sexiness of it, right? I think, yeah.
Pradeep?
So I think, again, I guess there'll be some repetition, but I think spend time in understanding and explaining why. We jump into a solution without expressing the why at the board, why at the CXO level, why at the people level. If you can invest the time in explaining why we are doing a technology shift or investment in a particular technology, then one, the board will agree. Two, inertia will not be there, so people will accept and people will sort of start using it, and therefore you will see return. So I think the first one is the why. The second one I think is as critical, is figuring out, sort of segmenting the workforce and figuring out what works for whom. As Sunita was saying, as we have said earlier, we are all different people. What I like is not what he likes. And therefore it's important to appreciate those differences within a common workforce, and therefore segregate your talent, segregate the kind of work that they do, and therefore provide solutions, technology that fits the purpose of that particular cohort, and don't try to sort of do one thing for all. I think those are the two things I'll leave with for the others to talk.
Bapuji?
Yeah, so both can really coexist. It's a fine balance. We take a lot of support from digitalization. At the same time, maybe the relation management will continue to exist. It's a fine balance between both, and both will, it's not either or.
No, but I'm saying for a successful technology adoption from a people tech standpoint, what should organizations be careful of? That they should not, what are the tenets?
It's very simple. Maybe, as Pradeep says, not go overboard on a particular technology. Just make sure it serves you and serves your customers as well. Yeah. For example, I know what Abram is likely to buy in next 10 days, next 15 days. So arrange all my systems and process and people downstream to meet that. So it's a coexistence. And this will really enhance the usage of technology and in the right way.
Got it. So more connect CX to EX. Understand what the customer needs, understand what the employee needs to serve the customer, and work backwards. Makes sense. Abraham?
Yeah, I think clarity within the people are important. I think there's an old saying which is, why fix it when it's not broken? But today, I think people or organizations should have the ability to go and challenge the status quo. So if you are able to, if you're wanting to introduce man-machine collaboration in your organization because you've read about something or heard about it in a seminar, then you're possibly in the wrong track. First, you have to have absolute clarity within yourselves why you're doing it. What is your end purpose? Does it really make sense for you to do, and what tools to adopt? So I think that is important. And today, information is not a scarce resource. Information is available everywhere. What is needed is clarity. So as a leadership team, if everyone's got the clarity and the conviction within ourselves, that yes, this is the future. I cannot just survive with what I know today, but I need to have a machine which goes beyond my capability and gets the whole thing together. So that clarity is important, and once you have the clarity, the machine can help you make the choice. And once you have the choice, then I think as HR professionals, we can focus on what we actually ought to focus and why the business wants us to focus, rather than running around with what we call day-to-day.
Very quickly again through the group, just last 1 minute, and one skill each. What kind of capabilities do you think HR should possess or should develop to create better man-machine collaboration in an organization? So what capabilities should be developed within HR as a function? Maybe I'll start with Abraham, then work backwards.
I would still go back to openness. The ability to challenge the status quo, so openness, if I can.
Okay.
Agility. Be on toes and be responsive.
Open to change, agility, okay. Pradeep? I think you've already given the answer in the first question, but still.
Yeah, so technology and commercial acumen.
Techno-commercial acumen. Tarun?
Salesmanship. You've got to sell it, otherwise nobody's going to use it. That's my point.
This is something I'm going to take back. So perfect. So first of all, thank you guys. I think this was, I'm sure you agree, and big round of applause for from the audience. I think very, very rich discussion, very rich content coming through today. I think this was very, very valuable. And in a matter of half an hour, I think we've covered quite a bit. I'll just quickly summarize before I move to questions. So what did we hear today? Here are like some 5-6 points which will just help you encapsulate the whole discussion. So one, let's first accept it in our heads that HR won't get obsolete if we bring tech into our fore, right? And I think that's very important for us to understand as HR professionals. We need to adopt and adapt both, so that we need to develop skills, and that's what I think the audience, that's what the panelists spoke about in terms of being open to change. And that's extremely important, and that kind of ties back what we heard right at the beginning. Connect with CX and EX. I think this is an understatement today. I have done this in my previous avatar when I was with Myntra. I used to lead consumer experience and HR. So interestingly, I could see the bridge, right? When it comes to consumer experience and internet commerce, you go to any length to understand what Bapuji is buying at this exact moment, when he's returning, what is his experience, when he's paying, what is his experience, when he's using the product, what is his experience. And we play that back to him, we use that for marketing, we use that for positioning other products, but we don't even do 1/10 of that with employees. As to what is the employee life cycle? Where is that person in the employee life cycle? What kind, and we have diverse talent with us. For what kind of talent, what makes sense? And how do we then personalize? I'm not saying hyper-personalize, because I think even administratively it will be a nightmare, but at least try to understand what the person needs and then craft HR solutions. It's actually not as difficult as it sounds. You can do it with technology, right? Because technology will help you scale. So how do you connect CX and EX? So how do you take the learnings from CX, from consumer experience, and plug it to employees? Put employees in the customer's shoes and see how do you bridge the gap, right? HR needs to be more business savvy, I think. And I think that's something I heard, and it actually made a lot of sense. Even when I was working at Myntra or Zeta, and some of these august gentlemen who currently work across various organizations, work with boards, sit at boards, we do see on a day-to-day basis, and I'm being very controversial when I'm saying this, but our failure to sell business cases to boards, to say, why should we adopt a set of technology for our people? Is it just for engagement? Is it reactive? Is it cool? But is it actually going to solve a business problem, a customer problem? And I think our way to do it needs to improve as HR, right? And I include myself in that community. The other interesting thing that we heard was the whole concept of no touch that Bapuji pointed out. We are moving towards a gig economy, right? Yes, it's currently a little slow, and it's only in some sectors where you're seeing this, but it is a reality in the future, right? We don't know where the pandemic is today. We don't know what's going to hit us tomorrow, and this gig economy is going to continue. So the point that I'm trying to make is we need to understand our work arrangements and restructure our people processes and our people tech to meet each work arrangement, be it gig, be it blue collar, be it white collar. The whole concept of not just salesmanship, but even understanding employees as customers to not just buy tech or develop tech, but to customize tech for them. And this is going back to Tarun's point around this whole BRD, PRD. I'm sure people who work with product managers would have heard this, the business requirement doc and the product requirement doc, and people write out these very technical documents. I'm saying don't be technical, but at least understand from a large segment of your employee base what product will really make sense to make them more engaged, more effective, more productive, happier, etc., etc. And then convert that into a document and then figure out what tech works. Instead of saying, Workday is the best core HCM in the world, let's just get Workday, I'm sure it'll solve all problems, right? So that's the, I think for me, that was also a point where the penny dropped, because we don't look at, when we're developing products for customers, we do PRDs, but when we are developing or buying products for employees, we don't do that, right? So that's another very important one. The 4 key tenets that came out for a successful man-machine collaboration. 1, inclusion, get the buyer into the mix, which is the user here, from an employee standpoint. Segment the workforce, not everybody is the same. So segment the workforce, target the workforce. So marketing principles, segmenting, targeting, positioning, and figure out how to personalize for each segment. Connect CX to EX, don't miss out that point. And of course, solve the right problem. Don't do it just because you think it's cool. Solve the right problem, and sponsorship needs to come right from the top. So you need to sell it better to the top, right? And capabilities for HR require to adopt tech better, open to change, being more agile. I think this is another thing which is underrated today, is agility. HR's ability to, and this I think, again, coming from Flipkart, our ability today in startups especially to drop something which is not working and move on is much better. Just because you've invested in a tech and it's not working doesn't mean you continue to try and figure out how to make it work. I think we've gone are those days, right? Today, for example, if you're trying to book something on Swiggy, Instamart, I'm sure all of you use it, and it doesn't work, you immediately switch to Zepto, you don't wait. If the customer is not waiting, why should the employee wait? So how do you switch? How do you be more agile in developing and adopting better tech is also something. And I know there's change management involved, but there are ways and means of doing it. And if you understand your consumer, you'll be able to do it faster. And finally, techno-commercial acumen. How do you sell a business case better keeping technology at the base to leaders to say, why should people tech change? With that, I'll pause. Diksha, do we open for questions? Do we have time?
Maybe one or two questions this week. That's okay.
One or two questions from the audience to our august panelists. Do we have microphones? Yes, please. If you're loud enough, go for it. You've got a microphone.
Hi, my name is Divakar. I work with Cafe Coffee Day. One of the things that I always believed is CX and EX are very, very important. But I also see a lot of people not talking about UX over here. The reason I personally felt when I started working on a couple of technologies, though I'm not from the tech background, but I felt that till the time the UX is in place, in a right place, then adoption will always fail if it is not in a right place. I mean, the UX has to be on a high place. And why I felt that, because if today we talk about 60 or 40% of the people not using the technology, it is because when you start Instagram or a Facebook, it is all in verbal language. What about the people who are illiterates? How do we connect with them? And if we, even in the organization, we recruit people who are at the junior executive levels and people coming from, working blue collar especially, 10th standard or intern, not from the great schools and colleges and things like that. They do not understand all these things. Hence, the technology adoption is very, very less, even at corporate offices. Somehow I've seen that. My question is it US plays a very important role?
UX as in user experience.
User experience plays.
Yeah, so when I said employee experience, it kind of covered that as well. But I'll actually ask Bapuji to answer this question because I think he's in the most unique position in terms of what he faces on a day-to-day basis. I had faced it in my Myntra days, but it's so far back I don't remember. But I'll ask Bapuji to answer this question.
Yeah, it's very much. I mean, user experience is a part of customer experience we can always categorize, but it plays a major role. And the expectation of user experience is extremely high. Extremely high, I mean, they want your maybe app or maybe your tech to be as good as maybe WhatsApp or Instagram or Facebook. So the expectations are very high, but user experience really matters. Ease, comfort, and speed, and also a lot of other incentives to use that, also tying around the way the experience, they experience the app.
But just an addition to that question. So let's say people who are currently, let's say, either illiterate or people who do not have, they have access, but they possibly don't have the ability to understand how the apps work, etc. How are you managing that on ground in, let's say, a Flipkart?
Yeah, so two things. One, a lot of things, thanks to penetration of internet and all these social sites, their ability to use these apps has significantly gone up. They're too good in that. And most of the, especially delivery teams, they're very good in managing the app. Their ability to navigate through the app is far superior to most of us. So that's one. Second, all of them are tech savvy. So they understand, just that some of them are struggling to read English, so then we move to vernacular. But the speed of usage is far superior, adaptability is good, just that we need to enable them with maybe vernacular, pictorial diagrams and such things.
So very interestingly in Myntra and Flipkart, because eCart used to run our entire logistics and supply chain arm, we had invested in building apps which were color coded and were mostly button heavy. So the employee figured out which button to click in order to get something done, instead of trying to read what's on the app. And it becomes muscle memory after a point. So to Bapuji's point, you will be surprised today, a Swiggy delivery boy who's possibly not even been to the first standard can use their smartphone better than us. Because it's muscle memory. They've used their smartphone so much to do their current job that they know how to navigate the phone. So I think there is a lot of merit in UX in that sense, customizing UX for that segment of the population to give them the right experience and give them the right tools to be effective. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. I'm Archana. And my question is, how do we measure the ROI on the expenditure done related to workforce modernization? Because at the end of it, the management or the board asks ROI. So how do we measure it?
ये सवाल तरुण के लिए है. सबसे ज़्यादा, I think majority of questions come to him as a co-founder and a CBO saying, यार इसका ROI कहाँ से आ रहा है? So Tarun, I think this question is for you, man. It's meant for you.
I really don't want to answer it, but I'll give it a shot. So it's actually very, very easy, right? How do you kind of measure an ROI for a system? You know, and I want to also kind of include the answer to the last question also, because it's very interesting. See, I'm sorry, and every product guy will hate me, but what is important is the content or the value prop of a particular app, right? I don't think the UX matters as much. If your content is good, it'll work, right? And coming to your question, ma'am, for an employee, what is important? If it's on your system, it'll get used. But you have to ask yourself, as every HR guy, and I'm going to ask this today because I never got a chance, and you know I can. Are you building a system to tame him or to add value to his life? आप ये check कर रहे हो कि वो time पे आ रहा है, अपना attendance लगा रहा है, or are you actually doing something that adds value? Ma'am, I promise you. Let me give you an example. There is, you know, in our Salesforce, we've got, you know, a platform which they use, you know, which has all the content where they tell about products. We added a very simple layer which says what is the incentive you're earning and where you're heading, how your target's moving, and if you did so many sales in the next 3 days, where you can reach. Our productivity for the top performers went up by 30% the day this went live. So if you add value, you will see a direct impact. Sales is easy, you can see it, right? In customer service, it's a bit difficult. But if you build intelligent systems, when you build it, you will already have to have a measurement for it. So don't try and measure after you've done it. Do it when you're doing it. For example, you know, ticketing systems across the world, why do they work? They work because they actually give everything in a particular order. But email was already doing that, right? All your emails in the same pile. You make it intelligent. So if there is a customer who has a need which is urgent, is it coming on the top of his pile? Is there a customer he has to follow up on? If you start doing this, what you will see is your ticket closure rate increases, right? Every system you ever build, whether it's for employees, for customers, for anybody, you have to start with the metric. If you haven't started with the metric, there is no way to measure ROI. You can't do it post facto, is my limited point.
I'll actually also ask Pradeep to answer that question, because I think when he spoke about techno-commercial acumen, when he spoke about our ability to generate better business cases, this is a question that his answer would actually give you maximum insight as well, because he and I had a very interesting discussion before this about something like this. So,
I hope my answer gives, you know, I think there are 3 dimensions. The first is efficiency. Is your product or is your solution driving better efficiency? And it can mean multiple aspects of the business, but is it driving efficiency, right? Is HR spending less time? Is your manager spending less time? Is it easy for sales and talent management to meet? Is it easy to meet customer experience to employee experience? So is efficiency getting improved because of implementation of a tool or a system? Number 1. Number 2, accuracy. You know, if you implement a tool because it'll be more accurate, payroll happens on time, nobody gets less or more money kind of stuff. So accuracy. And if you think about sales and marketing, they have used that very, very effectively over the years, right? The second is accuracy of work and what you do kind of stuff. And then third is experience. You know, whether you are creating an empowering, enriching experience for your employees because you did that. I mean, Thomas spoke about employee surveys kind of stuff, right? If you do some of that, you will figure out that where your experience is, and then you implement a product and you see whether the experience has gone up or not. So I think those are the 3 dimensions: efficiency, accuracy, and then experience.
I'll add one more, which is expense. So I typically use a 3E or a 4E principle. So it's efficiency, effectiveness, or accuracy, efficiency, accuracy, experience, and expense. If you're using tech which eventually is not giving you some kind of a margin benefit, which is not helping you in some way, now the way to arrive at that margin benefit may be slightly circuitous, right? You have to just come to that, you have to navigate and figure out, okay, this is the amount of money I'm saving. But ultimately, if you don't do that, then we are always seen as people who are experience pushers. That we are always trying to create best experience at the cost of what? So that expense is also important when you're building your business case. So the 4E principle, which is efficiency, effectiveness, experience, expense, all 4 are critical to, I would say, evaluate the ROI in the right lens.
Thank you.
One last question, maybe? If not, oh, there is one. So one last question. Diksha, sorry, I'm snatching time away from you.
Hi. Hi, I'm Malini here, and I wanted to just get some good practices on how technology has been used as a platform to also imbibe the culture of the organization to employees. So because that's been a biggest challenge for at least most of us for the last 2 years. So some good practices that you all would like to share from the panel.
Anyone? Maybe Abraham. I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
I guess, I think it's obviously a very difficult question from a culture perspective, because it pretty much contextual, it changes from organization to organization. The way I see it, we talk about, we need to understand what the current employee workforce is. If I was trying to coin a 3F word in HR, which is freedom, flexibility, and I'm sorry, I forgot the 3rd F, which is so basically what people are looking for is they need a lot of freedom at workplace. They want to be flexible. Okay, so they want a lot of flexibility at workplace today. And the 3rd is they actually want to go beyond a salary. I'm not able to get the 3rd F word, but today's workforce is not just looking for the paycheck. They're looking for enhanced knowledge, capabilities to do things on their own and stuff like that. So if you ask me at my context, I know exactly what my employees are looking for, and I do a lot of exercise with them in terms of rapid dipstick surveys, talking to them, and all these data are collated to find out what they want. So I just ensure that my technology or whatever I'm adopting does not disrupt that or only enhances the so-called culture which is relevant to the organization I represent. It might just be irrelevant to another 3rd organization.
Anyone else?
So let me try and attempt. I think culture is a result and not an activity, right? And therefore, some of the things that we spoke about all this while sort of helps in building the culture. So as a chief people officer or as a CHRO, we don't wake up in the morning and say, okay, today I'll change the culture of the organization. We say that we will do A, B, C, D, E, and that hopefully will get to where we want to be as far as culture is concerned. So it's sort of multiple building blocks that takes you to the culture that you want to be. Again, we spoke about employee satisfaction, employee delight, surveys, and all that stuff. I mean, those are building blocks of getting to where you want to be from a culture standpoint.
Hey, I got the 3rd F. I have to say that now. So it's freedom, flexibility, and I forgot it again.
It's fun. It's fun. Let's have fun.
No, it's fulfillment. It's actually fulfillment.
Got it. No, thank you so much, guys. Thank you for being a patient audience. Thank you for your questions. Thank you, panelists, for being most kind and sharing your cumulative wisdom with this audience. And I hope you enjoyed the session. We'll be around for some more time if you have any more questions, but thank you so much.
Thank you.